What is the fellow?
Yeah, I will.
Say it again.
Just keep her a minute to get her profile.
Yeah, I
Oh,
will.
sure.
Just don't keep it.
Are you ready, Paul? Okay.
Okay. Hi, everyone. It's 7 o'clock. So we usually get started by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I guess I can officially say I was the chair of the Board of Education, even if it's only for 15 minutes. The first thing on our agenda tonight is the officer elections. For those of you who are new, we have 3 positions that will need to be filled. It's the secretary, vice chair, and chair. Currently, Penny Miller is our secretary. I was the vice chair, and Carl Hermanat was the chair. We do it in a paper ballot format. Penny has the papers right there. They're cut up, ready to go. How this works is we start with the secretary position. I'll ask if there are any nominations for secretary, and if you would like to nominate someone, you raise your hand and announce the person you would like to nominate. If he or she accepts, then they are in the running for that position. Regardless of how many people are nominated, we all still have to vote. Let's see, we passed the ballots out. You need to put your name on, oh yeah, that's true. You need to put your name on the top of the ballot along with what your vote is. So it has to be noted. Is that correct? That's correct,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
If only one person is nominated and you don't wish to vote for him or her, you abstain or say present. Either way, you can write either. Then you fold the papers up, hand them back to me, and we count up the votes. I will not be seeking reelection as vice chair, just in case any voting for me. And then before I start the voting, and while I have the floor as interim chair, I'd like to thank Carl Hermanat for the job he did as chair. As you know, it's a volunteer position. There's quite a bit of work that's involved with it. And he went above and beyond. So I'm really grateful that he took on that position. Sometimes it can be a thankless job. And I know he was a big support to you, correct?
Yeah.
So I want to acknowledge him for a job well done. And I'm hoping that whoever our next chair is can follow suit. We've had 2 amazing chairs. Tim Goff, many of you don't know him. He was the chair prior to Carl Hermanat. I couldn't be any different from him politically. And I have a lot of respect for him and how he ran this board as I do Carl. So I'm hoping that, we can move forward, the new chair, whoever the new chair may be, because that's where it all starts. I like to work together cohesively as a board for the good of the teachers, the students, the town. And with that being said, let's vote. Okay. So why don't we start with, are there any nominations for secretary?
Please make sure you got that.
I'll nominate Penny Miller.
I'll second that. And then I'll pass those out, dear. Okay.
And then just pass them back to me.
Does that mean you're accepting?
Yes.
Yeah, I could have asked you, but I think I know the answer. Here, take mine.
Thanks. Do I have to vote for myself?
Yes. Oh.
Thank you, everyone. I am still your secretary. And when you put your names on these, please indicate who you are. Like write your first name on the, or your whole name on the top, and then how you're voting underneath, please.
So next is for vice chair. Do we have any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Tom Buzzy for vice chair, please.
I'll second.
She's got.
Okay.
these over there.
You have to accept.
Yeah, Tom, do you accept? Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any other nominations for vice chair? No, going once? Okay.
Tom, you are vice chair.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And finally, we're going to vote for the chair. Do I have any nominations for chair?
I'd
The
like to
board.
nominate Tim Clips for chair. Well, I only need one, just for me.
Oh, they have them
Yeah,
in there.
there's-
Okay. All right.
Yeah, there's-
You guys got them? Okay.
Good.
Those are all the other ones.
Okay. Okay. Here you go.
And you are now chair.
Congratulations.
Do you
Tim.
accept?
Yes.
You want to sit over here? Okay. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the nomination. Thank you for the support. Again, I hope that I'll welcome all our new board members, Frank, Tim. I'm gonna have to remember names still. Megan, Kristen and Megan, right? Welcome to the board. Again, I thank you for the nomination. Again, I hope to be a good chair. Again, I hope that this board continues to work together in the best interest of our community and our children. And again, look for improvements in every way we can. Again, jumping right into the agenda, we do have a full agenda tonight, so we'll jump right into the next item on the agenda, which is communication to the Board of Education. Jeff, do we have anything? No communication to the board. And we'll open up for public comment.
Sure thing, Penny. Ed Mum, 6 Brella Road, here in New Hartford. First, I'm here to speak about the armed security guard position. First, let me say I'm all for school security, and I believe this board, superintendent, everybody has the best interest in making our kids safe and making the school safe. I do have some concerns. First, being that we're only going to hire one, and I understand it's the startup. You probably want to hire more later on as time goes on to get to all 3 schools. But I really see that one, we're not providing the same protection for all of our kids. One day the school guard is here at this school, the next day, 2 days later, he's down at the next school. What happens in between? What if there is an incident where my son is at school and the school guard is somewhere else? As a parent, I'd be pretty upset about that, knowing that we as taxpayers are paying for a service and that service wasn't available. So I certainly understand that there's a cost issue in regards to getting 3 armed security guards to 3 different schools. But I'm not a big fan of initially just having one and on a rotating schedule. Second, the teachers. There was a survey, and I'm under the impression that a lot of them were kind of against it. And I don't know why this is being pushed forward. I hope that their voice is being heard on this matter. And I think, maybe we should give some reconsideration to what it is that they're saying and listen to the teachers who are with our kids every day, who are in that environment, that see the shortcomings, see the faults that can be improved upon, and try to rectify those situations to make the schools a little bit more sound and secure. Which kind of brings me into my third point, and that is, and again, I don't know all the policies, I don't know all the procedures, but I'll drop my son off at Bakerville for drop off in the morning time. The door's wide open for 10, 15 minutes. And we're talking about hiring a school security guard that's armed, but yet we're leaving the door wide open with staff within the halls. Where's the threat? It's right around the corner. Comes up to the door, walks right in. That's it. Drop off in the morning, that's at pick up in the afternoon. So I get people want to fix problems, but I feel that if we really put our heads together, there's so many more things that we can do to strengthen and make our school systems much more secure and not as complacent as they are. You could have 5 guards at that school, but if you keep the door open, those 5 guards are not going to do anything. You're throwing your money into a false hope. And we really need to look at ourselves. I don't know if we need to bring outside people in to really evaluate to see what we can do to strengthen. But as a taxpayer, I don't want to throw my money into a false hope that this person's going to be able to react and do the job. I don't. And being a cop for 19 years, you have to be extraordinarily proficient, practical, well-trained, and your mind has to be so mentally perfect to be able to engage a threat and to be able to eliminate that threat. The odds are stacked against that guard before the show even begins. So my point being is I just hope that we as a community, the board, the superintendent, maybe we can reevaluate this and look at some other sound reasons and our ideas that we can put forward to at least know that we're going to get some value out of those investments. And I don't feel that paying somebody $75,000 a year is going to get us the results that we want when that critical incident happens. And it's a deterrent. We've all seen it. I can park my car, be in uniform, and people are still going to speed by. It's the same idea with a security guard. They know it. If they're determined, they're going to take the action that they want to do. So we need to put our money and our ideas into infrastructure, into complacency, and try to strengthen our school systems in a much better way than instead of just putting hope into something that somebody's going to be able to do something when the time comes. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Ole Carlson, and I live at 455 West Hill Road. I wanted to speak about security too, and what you guys are planning to do. And so I wrote a letter instead. just commenting on what he said. You only have one school that can be made secure, and that's this building. Okay, my understanding is tonight you plan on voting to add a roving armed guard to the school system. There are some things you need to consider before acting. I don't know how many of you have been trained in the use of handguns or automatic weapons. I have. So there are some things you need to understand. Real life is not like the movies or TV. If you're shooting a handgun at a target and you're moving, you will not hit it. Yes, you'll hit something. In a school, it'll be the floor, the ceiling, or a wall with students and teachers behind it. If you're standing still and still more than 20 feet away, the chances of a miss are very high. Automatics and semi-automatics are suppression weapons. With a high rate of fire, aiming is not important. Something you need to understand is that these weapons are designed to kill or maim. A round from one of these weapons has the real possibility of removing an arm from an adult. Even with a vest, if a round hits you, you will go down and you will not get up. The damage these weapons will do to a child is something you do not want to imagine. A guard with a handgun standing still to shoot or moving will not survive an encounter with an automatic weapon. Adding an armed guard will not add security. It will add a placebo that will allow the Board of Education to sit back and say to each other, they did their best. It is not. Adding a guard is not the best you can do, but you know that. With 3 unprepared buildings, the board has created real targets of opportunity for a crazy shooter. I've attached to this letter a letter I sent to the Waterbury Republican, a letter they published. Read this and then that letter before you make a decision. So I think I'll read the second letter. There was a mention in the papers that the Board of Education in New Hartford is thinking about increasing the security in the form of armed guards in the school system. This was after a recent school and other mass shootings. While this may seem to be a good idea on its own, it isn't. Why? First, school murderers come with semi or automatic weapons. Security guards have handguns. It's almost impossible to hit a target with a handgun while moving. That's why armies use automatic weapons. You don't have to aim. The New Hartford school system has around 400 students and 60 to 70 teachers and staff scattered over 3 buildings. Sadly, by their interaction, yours, the board has used your children to create targets of opportunity for the crazy. Adding armed guards will not solve that problem. That is, aside from having children in a place where armed guards wandering around, there are places like that, and their names are prisons. I don't know how many of you have ever worked in a true secure environment. I have. And I don't mean a building with locked doors and badges. As been demonstrated by the bodies of dead children and teachers, this does not work. Of the 3 schools New Hartford has, all 3 are not currently defensible. The first step in security is distance. Only one school offers that possibility. That school is the Antolini School. Why? Antolini is the only school that has a gate and a fence with separation from the school. The gate can be made secure with entry controlled by video or a guard. Additionally, the school entryways can be double-doored with locks, videos, and metal detectors. That separation gives security time to react and arrive before the shooter does. Once the security upgrades are made, and that can be done in 1 to 2 months, all the children should be moved to Antolini. This school can hold 650 children, and the system has some 400 students. By making the school difficult to reach and to access, the board can make this tragic event very unlikely to occur. The students and teachers deserve the safest environment this board can provide. The board has the opportunity to create a safe and secure school for students and teachers. Will the board provide your children the best security they can and deserve? And if not, why not? So.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Okay, thank you all. Moving on to superintendent report, item number 1, school security update and possible vote on next steps. Jeff?
Thank you so much. First, thank you, Kelly, for running our elections as our interim chairperson, and congratulations to all of the newly elected officials on the board in your new officer positions, and also welcome again to all the new Board of Education members. This evening's agenda has a security update, so I would like to provide a timeline of information in terms of providing the public more information, again, as a complete recap, and also some information on some grant initiatives that were also awarded to the New Hartford Board of Education, which are in conjunction with our security upgrades. And again, without giving away too much of information, but again, as a very general scope and understanding for the public to have. So I'll go through that together as my first agenda item. I'm going to grab that other microphone though, so I could present online to the public as well. Testing. Good, Mike? All right, very good. Welcome to everybody joining us live stream as well. Thank you for joining our Board of Education meeting tonight. Paul, how are we doing? Okay? All right. All right, very good. Thanks everybody for your patience as we set up. Want to walk everybody back through a timeline of actions and events that have taken place that have drawn us to where we are today, almost a full year later. Starting last year, I was hired in November 28th of 2022. Shortly thereafter, security subcommittee met. This subcommittee had been in place long before I had arrived, always looking at infrastructure and improving upon our safety and security measures across all of our district. So the safety security meeting, subcommittee meetings took place, and in January at a Board of Education meeting, we shared that we were going to be consulting with school security consultants across the state of Connecticut. We had discussed, we connected with 3 individual firms. We also determined that we would like to develop and distribute a community survey relative to the idea of hiring 1, 2, or even 3 armed security officers. And we wanted to research costs associated with that idea, again, in enhancing our schools' safety measures. Taking us to February, we proposed a phased implementation of armed security officers, being conscious and of the budget implications that would incur. You'll see in a latter point up to $225,000 if you're looking at 3 individuals. That motion was denied at the February 2023 Board of Education meeting. We also, at that point, finalized and then distributed our community survey, and that was done via postcard, QR code, and sent out to all community members, all of the households in New Hartford, because we wanted to attain the public's sentiment, as well as staff members and those that do have children in school and those that do not have children in school as well. We thought that those were all very important pieces of information to connect to inform our decision-making process. Security consultants came back with, as someone mentioned earlier, layers, hardening exterior, hardening the interior. And then, of course, their mindset was, of course, to meet with hiring the 1 to 3 armed security officers, if possible, to do so. They recommended post-certified retired police officers of good standing. March 2023, those results were collected and tabulated. Approximately 395 results were collected throughout town via Google survey. At that point in time, in March 2023, additional pieces were considered by the Board of Education and moved forward. So an earmarking, again, from the Safety and Security Subcommittee, the motion was to find $75,000 for 1 armed security officer, with the future intent of phasing that in over time. So the board directed the superintendent to find and earmark those monies. That $75,000 was not instructional, impacting, not cutting other positions or anything of that nature. The specific listings of them I'll go through in a little bit later of the presentation. The board also voted at this time through the capital budget to increase our security infrastructure budget by $50,000. And we also decided that we would like to collect even more information. So we put out the Google survey. The board felt we want more information on that. So we wanted to post the question to referendum that was going to take place in May of 2023. Survey results, as I've shared before, and also that are posted on our FAQs under the Board of Education Security tab. You'll see here, staff reporting 20% in favor, 80% not in favor. Town residents overall, 53% in favor, 47% not in favor. New Hartford residents with no students in school, 41% in favor, 59% not in favor. And New Hartford residents with students in school, 65% in favor, 35% not in favor. Continuing on, in April and in May, the request for an advisory question to be placed on referendum was denied at that point in time due to the fact that it was recommended it was too late to go forward from the Board of Education to then have it go to the Board of First Selectmen, to then have the town clerk approve it, and then also have it to be sent on to the Secretary of the State. We would not meet that timeline in time. So the plan was then, let's add it as an advisory referendum question later in November, during the November election timeframe. So this request, months later, was denied via the Board of Selectmen. A letter was written in consultation with the town council, Attorney Robach, and the plan of action, instead of having it listed on the referendum, was to invite the public to come to informational sessions very briefly, but the main intent was for the Board of Education to hear from the public on October the 25th. Then the new members were voted in, and then on November the 21st. So we did that strategically so that we could have informational sessions and listening sessions held before and after the election of our 4 new board members. In October 2023, 2 Connecticut grants for physical security upgrades were announced. I will get into a little bit more of those general upgrades that are desperately needed within our school system. And then we held our first in October, our first informational meeting. FAQs were generated from that meeting, and those are posted publicly on our website. During this time as well, running parallel during the informational meeting times, a New Hartford School Security.org email address was created with the distribution list of all Board of Education members listed, again soliciting those that could not come to the informational session to share their input via email. So some folks shared that they were not in favor, some shared that they were in favor, some shared that they just had more questions about the entire process and the idea. So November, again, we had another informational meeting with public comment just recently. And again, we added some more of those questions to the frequently asked questions. Which takes us to today. I'm presenting the security timeline. I'm also going to be talking about our grant implementation and how we'd like to have that executed, and to give an update in terms of what monies that were earmarked. The $75,000 that was earmarked is now to $57,000 in our current budget to cover the one armed security officer. So if I take everybody here, this was the original earmarked lines within our 2023-24 budget. $30,000 was earmarked for painting. Those have not been expended, so there's $30,000 there. Emergency repairs were slated at $25,000. We've spent $3,000, tile flooring, door locks, things of that nature. So that's down to 22. The window cleaning is still there. Correct membership was not utilized. Superintendent's line was spent. Propane, $500 of that was spent. And Enviromed, moving forward with our asbestos testing and looking forward to days of abatement, was spent down. So we are currently to date, as of November the 29th, 2023, at a $57,700 earmarked money to be utilized for that armed security officer. So as I've mentioned in earlier board meetings, we've had grants. We are very blessed to have received 2 grants from the state of Connecticut. And we were also recently awarded another, and we are the only school district in the state of Connecticut, a $500,000 Department of Justice and Homeland Security grant from the federal government as well. With those monies, we are looking to do the following as a very general oversight of some of the work we'd like to get done at our schools to harden the infrastructure, harden the exterior and interiors of our buildings. Some things are not listed here because they're really secure. We're not making it public every single thing that we are doing because we don't want to put those plans in the hands of anybody that has malintentions towards our staff and our students. First, we're looking at securing our windows, and that looks at applying a 3M ballistic glazed to all of our glass windows at all 3 schools. So that could look like an interior or an exterior application of a ballistic glass, which does not allow the glass to be shattered and broken and smashed into, then allowing entrance into any of our buildings. So we're looking at implementing that. We currently have requests for proposals out for that currently. So that's already in the works for 2024, looking to complete that by 2025, dependent on materials and availability. That could extend out a little bit further. All grants that we've received are 3 years. So we have 3 years to implement them and to ask for those reimbursements. We currently are working on and have been updating our doors and our locks in our buildings. Some buildings are further along than others, but this grant will help facilitate that at a much quicker and expedited rate. Our phone systems, which are older, aging, and antiquated, have significant difficulties in communicating across district office to inner office, from our school to school to school, or to district office, as I've mentioned. And the mass messaging system there has significant delays because it's aged out. So we need to upgrade that internal infrastructure of our phone systems. That was looking to be done hopefully this summer of 2024. Our camera systems are lacking and lagging, from having hardware space to store footage, to just having them in strategic areas to give us enough time if there are any issues that we could prevent that are approaching building, or even things that are happening internally. For me, having family members that serve in law enforcement, and having recapped a multitude of different security issues that have happened across the United States, unfortunately, without having a camera system internally to give law enforcement eyes into the building, sets them up for failure. And I would like them to have eyes and ears inside of the building for any threats that could be taking place. Something as simple as, a wild animal's in the school versus an intruder that should not be there. Perimeter fencing is something else that was also inclusive of the grant implementation, again, to prohibit or at least delay entrance to our school grounds. And then interoperable radios are something as well that needs significant updates. This involves not just the use of our walkie-talkie system that's within, but also allowing us to have direct communication with Troop B, with Litchfield County Dispatch, that is lacking and needs to be upgraded as well to have more immediacy to respond to any such emergency, whether it be a gas leak or a lockdown or another significant safety concern. So these are some of the grant components. Again, there are others, but these are the major pieces that we're looking to overhaul in our district to improve our security measures. And thank you for feedback from our constituents that have emailed us and also folks that have come to speak publicly this evening and on the other evenings as well, but wanted to give a little bit more information about our grant implementation going forward.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Before we go on to the next item on the agenda,
Sure.
I'd like the board to have an opportunity to have a discussion regarding the next steps. But before we do that, a couple things that I would like to ask you to clarify. The 3 grants received to date, what is the total of those 3 grants in aggregate?
1.2 million.
1.2 million. And the reimbursement rates on those range, but the highest being?
Yep. Connecticut ranges in the 50 to 52 cent range. The federal government grants range from 75 cents to 78 cents on the dollar reimbursement.
So for every dollar we spend, we recover 75 cents for some of these grants.
Correct.
And then another topic before I go back, and I am a member of the school security subcommittee, and the discussion, and we've heard from the community many times regarding, one guard and why one guard. That was discussed at length as Jeff just went through. We talked about 3 guards. We talked about the cost of 3 guards. It was voted down as a committee because of budget restrictions. And the idea is that this one guard is not just a guard who stays in this school for the full day and goes to another school for another full day. This guard would be somebody who roams randomly throughout the day, because we do have our resident state trooper as well as our constables that are also roving throughout the town throughout the day. So again, it's one step closer to where we want to get to. But the idea is that there is always someone, and they're in communication with each other, somewhere on the opposite side of town. So if Officer Fig is downtown, the armed security guard is in this area, again, and vice versa. So they are moving themselves around, was the idea around, and how we landed on one security guard to get this started. The other thing with our subcommittee, we've talked about, again, hardening the walls, hardening the interiors. Again, there's one thought about hardening and keeping the individual out of our schools, but there's also the thought process of what happens when they get in and how do we stop them. And those are a couple of the points that I wanted to make, and then I'd like to open it up for the rest of the board to be able to have some discussion. I would ask that, again, just out of respect for one another, let each individual finish their statement, and then please provide your input. Yes, and what Penny's saying is when you are speaking, please turn your microphone on at that time. Any discussion?
Hi, I'm Kristen Young. I'm new to this board, obviously, and I just want to thank everybody who's been on this board for a long period of time for all the work that you've been doing to analyze the security situation in our schools, as well as come up with proactive plans to help protect our students. I've attended both of the informational meetings from the public, as well as talked to many people within the town about this, and been reading the board minutes as I've gone along. I truly have not heard much support from the town or the school for the plan as proposed, most specifically the issue around one guard for 3 schools. I think it's a little bit unnerving for everybody who is reading all of this to kind of feel like we're not being honest about the real cost of what the security will cost for the district or for the schools. And this stopgap measure is, as many people have mentioned, leaving some of our students and some of our schools unprotected at various times. I think that there is more work to be done to understand how we can bridge that gap and really come up with a plan that is going to be satisfactory to everybody, considering those measures. There's still a lot of money for us to be spending on hardening the schools from an interior and exterior perspective. We don't know what those final costs would be, and even though we have some reimbursements coming in through grants, which is a great thing. It doesn't mean that all the money is going to be cost. And I don't know about any of you, but I have never worked on any kind of construction or infrastructure project that only costs as much as you expect is going to cost at the beginning. And so those are some of my concerns. I just wanted to share that, those thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks. Tim Russell. I really just wanted to share a little bit of information with everyone. In 2018, data showed that 328 people were killed in school shootings and 537 were injured. The FBI data further shows that when an armed person arrives at an active shooter situation, the shooter overwhelmingly stops their attack. So if we already have someone at the school, it's likely that the attacker will not come to our school. And that's been shown recently in other police shootings. I believe it was in Tennessee last year. The FBI study proves that the presence of an armed guard serves as a deterrent to the attackers. The average police response to an active shooter is 10 to 18 minutes, while the response for an armed guard is about 30 seconds. This is important because the average active shooting lasts about 12 minutes, but the majority begin and end within 5 minutes. Imagine the amount of lives we could save if someone is there within 30 seconds. I've heard people saying that there would be an added risk by bringing a gun into the school, but Harvard research shows that the presence of an armed guard did not increase the risk of injury or death in any of these situations. Also, a survey from the National Association of School Psychologists has found that the presence of armed security in schools has contributed to positive school climate and enhanced overall well-being. I personally believe that we need an armed guard in each school. But if people are worried about the cost of the one guard at $75,000 a year, I just want to provide a little more stats. I checked the 2018 census for New Hartford, and it showed us as having 2,228 single-family homes. If the $75,000 was divided between each of these single-family homes, it would cost $34 per household per year, which is probably what we spend in half a month on coffee. So to me, this is not about money or anything else. It's about saving lives. And it's about loving our children and loving each other to make sure that we do what is right to protect them. So as some of you know, I love ending with quotes. So I'm going to end with a John F. Kennedy quote. And the quote is, "Children are the living messages we send to a time that we may never see." So what I'm asking all of you is to help us keep them alive. Thank you.
Can I go? Yeah. I have a lot I could say on this. So I'm just gonna kind of speak to one specific area. And Ed, you kind of hit the nail on the head and took most of the words out of my mouth. And it's not very often I agree with Mr. Carlson, but tonight I did. I guess for me, the survey was too close and there wasn't overwhelming support for or against the guards. I'm big on that. I'm big on, listening to the town, listening to teachers, listening to the will of the people. But what I did find interesting was the percentage of teachers who were not in favor of the guards, 80%. That's a big number. And these are the people who are going to be on the front lines taking a bullet for your child. I don't know, did anybody in here actually who's in favor of the armed guards, have you talked to these teachers? Have you asked them why? Because they're the ones that are going to be on the front lines too. Why don't they want it? Why don't they want their protection? I can assure you it's not because they don't care about your kids and they don't want to keep them safe, because that is of utmost importance. I'm a teacher, so I know I would take a bullet for them, but there's a reason that they're all voting against it. And you need to go talk to them and find out why. I know why. I didn't even have to. I asked them, but I didn't have to, because I'm a teacher and I know why. That money can be so well spent in other areas. We have a huge mental crisis going on in our schools all across America. I literally left the public school district. I teach in a private school right now because the last few years when I was subbing and I was a long-term substitute in a town, Avon, Connecticut. Unbelievable what I went through my year of teaching there with the mental health of some of these students. Classrooms are unsafe. You have kids throwing chairs. You have runners. Teachers are having to put scissors away. This is nothing I had ever experienced in my entire teaching career. And it's nothing like it used to be. We need to get more support and help for these teachers. We need to be proactive rather than reactive. And that's where we are, where they're struggling. They're begging us to help. Give them more paras. Keep their class sizes down. Get them more special ed teachers. I mean, Travis, he might have not always delivered it well, but he was onto something. He was right. We have to get them more support. This is not the same school system that it once was. We live in a different society. We live in different times. We are also dealing with kids who are post-COVID. I really think we have to think long and hard about this, and I certainly hope we are not voting on this tonight with 4 new board members who still haven't had the time to really wrap their heads around this. I'm not saying I'm totally against it. In a perfect world, if money grew on trees, yeah, I think that we should have all the security that we could, but I just think it could be money better well spent. I've been in schools that have guards. Somebody wants to get in here, they're going to get in. You just walk up to the playground. Fair game at recess. I mean, teachers get lax. We leave doors open. We all do it. I don't care. You know, everybody gets really conscious and safety conscious when something happens in the world, and then things start to get complacent. You prop that door for fresh air. How are you going to eliminate that threat? That's it.
I'm just gonna say a couple of things I think Tim covered. My biggest thing is having the opportunity to do something and God forbid something goes sideways and we didn't do it. And we sit here and say, oh boy, I wish maybe we should have done that. That's nothing I want to live with. And I don't know what any family would want to live that way if they were to lose a child, and that's just an unthinkable loss. My biggest thing is I think it's a deterrent. As Tim mentioned, the Tennessee shooting, the person, whoever it was, chose a different school because there was someone on the other side of the door with a gun. So they chose to go somewhere else. It's been documented all over the place. Deterrence is a big factor in why I feel it's important to move forward with this. And there's also the ambassador thing. Police, as you know, and my son knows, when I grew up, you said hi to a police officer and you were respectful. Nowadays, they treat you like garbage. And if we can get an officer in the school at this age and they see this person as a human being they can look up to and feel safe around, that's going to carry and pay dividends down the road for the mental health issues that we're dealing with. If you see an officer and say, he was a good guy. I remember him from grammar school, elementary school. That to me is a very important aspect of this whole proposal as well. So a hardened target is great, but I think deterrence is more important than even a hardened target. That's my position on that. And then to discuss some of these other issues that we have, just to throw there, we have open doors, right? And you walk up to the school and the door's open. If there's a trained officer on the grounds, maybe he's going to say, get that door closed, right? Because the teachers are busy wrangling kids and getting kids off the bus. This guy's main job is to keep everyone safe. He's going to say, get that door closed. That's his job. And there's one now. It's a start. And one's better than nothing. That's my position. Thank you.
I'm new here and I don't know the protocol. Is it appropriate, instead of just saying what I think, to ask some questions?
You can ask questions of the board.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. Because, as a new board member, I've done my due diligence. I've watched the videos, done the research. I work at a school with an armed security guard. And I really have a blank slate on the topic. Would we be, how long would we be hiring an armed security guard for? Is this a 1-year hire?
Yes, right now would be a 1 year.
Because a lot of times you do this, it becomes permanent. And one of my concerns is the effect on staffing, school supplies, things like that. So it's feasible to do this as an interim or a pilot?
At this point, it is, yes. And then just like every program and every thing that we look at every single year, every aspect of the budget, we would have to reevaluate to make sure it's A, feasible, and B, continues to be something that's supported. And so we'd have to reevaluate just like we do everything every year.
Yeah, I forget who said it. I think it was Kristen, or maybe it was you, but this, this was looked at for 11 months and all of a sudden you got 4 new board members, and it's awkward to step into that without having been privy. Why didn't the board vote on this after looking at it for 11 months? What's that?
We didn't come to, can I speak? We didn't come to an agreement, because there was a lot of, interruptions and, disruptions and,
Also, to your point, one of the reasons that we didn't make a decision with the previous board members was because we were going to have new board members. And that we as a board, the old board, felt it was important that the new board members who were going to live with that decision for 4 years were able to make that decision. That's remember, that's why it was put off. It was one of the main reasons. Well, let's just put it off and give the new people, the new members, a chance to have an opinion on this, that they have to live with for 4 years. So that was one of the reasons.
But
Okay.
the other reason it was put off is because we kept going back to get more information and doing more due diligence to the public. So we've sent out multiple surveys, we've sent out multiple postcards, we've had town hall meetings, we've been to town to do the referendum. I mean, we've done the whole gamut. So it's not something that was just willy-nilly. So that's partly why it's taken so long for this to come about. And then also, as Tom said, because we had new board members coming on board.
Another question I have, am I still on mic? I think so. Still learning this. So, if you guys were to do this, and I know there was a timing issue with a referendum, could this be, and I'm a big fan of referendums, it's a democracy. Could you have an interim and then put it on referendum in the future? I read Dan Jerem's letter. I'm not sure I wrap my head around it fully, but you understand what I'm asking? Is that a future option?
I'll try to say this as least subjective as I can. Track record right now for asking for a non-binding advisory question on the referendum, we're 0 for 2. So I'm not confident that that would take place.
Where we have this dilemma where we are trying to please the parents who send kids here and staff and other members of the town, and they're not on the same page.
Mhm.
And I was just looking for some way to, is it a possibility to try it out and then see what you think? And then in the future, have a referendum or another vote?
Just to kind of, answer both your questions again, when we talk about the referendum, right, when the decision was made by the board back then to get it on referendum, we waited and thought we were going forward with it. Then we were told it was too late, it couldn't go on referendum. Then we delayed and waited for it to happen again, and it didn't go on referendum, right? And you read Dan's letter for that.
I did.
From there, we said we still want to solicit input. So we had the survey, and as Jeff said, we had 600 and some odd people, right? 395 who had responded to that. We have had an email address. We've had the 2 informational sessions in. I'm not going to quote numbers, but we've had under a dozen people actually speak out, come to the meetings and speak, send communications to the board. So we've tried to solicit as much input as we can on this particular topic. And the referendum could do it because people are coming out to vote and it's there, but we're just not getting to that point to get it on for a non-binding question. So again, no matter, we're trying to do everything we can to solicit input. Right?
I'm trying to ask things and say things that haven't been said before because I've
Yeah.
watched so many and it becomes the same point over and over
Yeah.
again. And I get the final thing I would say is working in a building with an armed security guard and pretty good infrastructure, hardening the outside. I don't know if you've been to Regional 7, but have you been there?
Yes,
Yeah, takes a little while to get in, right?
yes.
And I feel the hardening of the building makes me feel the safest. I will say that of the two things.
More so than Officer Wood?
Yeah, he's one person in one spot and he's great. He's a great guy. And I like having him there, but the hardening of the building has been a game changer, I think, in the school.
Wait a minute. Kristen, did you want to say something before?
I just have a question around if we do go forward with one, whether it's an interim, which I think I'm not actually in favor of that plan because I think much like any sort of like entitlement program, once you institute something like this, taking it away at the whole other ball of worms, and I don't think it's really solving the problem. But if we were to move forward with just one, what is the evaluation criteria to say this is working in the way that we expect in the absence of an actual like school attack where it's there? How do we know that this is successful in a way that actually furthers the education like goals of our school and our community? I haven't seen anything around that to say, hey, I can sign off on this knowing this is the expansion plan for this because we have a plan saying one guard does this, this is great, so we're going to add 2-3 more guards. I think it's great that you guys have solicited all this feedback. I will reiterate my point again. I have not heard much support for the plan as stated. And so it is frustrating to me as a new member of the board, as well as a resident of this town, that the board seems on a path to move forward with one security guard, knowing that people do not want to spend the money for 3, that the teachers do not support it, and that there are people in the town who just don't want this. And people who do want it want 3 guards. Like, we're splitting a hair in a way that's not actually going to make anybody satisfied, but is going to create budget problems for ourselves down the line.
I just wanted to ask Frank, when you were speaking of the armed guard, is that a police officer or is that an actual armed guard?
Armed guard.
Armed guard, okay. I guess, further in that, we're talking about the percentages of who is in favor of the armed guard, and 65% of people with children in school are in favor of the armed guard. And I think that just shows that those individuals are thinking more about what they have to lose, where maybe the rest of the community isn't as worried about that because they don't have that emotional attachment per se to that child. So that's a big thing. But, I did a lot of research myself a year and a half ago on this, and I know several armed security guards from, they work in Burlington. I used to work with them as a police officer in Bristol. And when that first passed, and they have one in every single school, and when that first passed, there was some contention. But after a couple of years, it's like a 95% approval rating on them. So if we just want to keep that in mind as well, I think once hopefully we are able to do this, I think the views of certain people will change quite a bit.
This actually sort of reminds me a little bit of when we were trying to save Bakerville. It seemed like one day, all of a sudden, the board was voting to close the school. And well, I was one of them, but I had also just moved to town. So it definitely caught me by surprise. But there were people who had been living in town that were like, wait, what? They had no idea that they were going to be voting to close the school. And then all of a sudden, it kind of, awakened everyone. And I almost feel like that's what's happening right now. As Kristen said, like more and more people I have coming up to me and going, what is this about armed security guard? Like it's like foreign to them. I'm thinking, oh my God, we've been talking about this for 11 months. But it's very, it's at the forefront of our minds because we have been discussing it. But you know what? They're all out there going about their lives and they're not really paying attention. And yeah, I know we've sent out emails, we sent out postcards. And when you get you said that there were 65% of the parents who voted in favor for it. if you were if I were to look at a postcard that came in the mail and asked if I wanted armed security guards, of course, I'm going to check off the box and say yes. If they were to actually come here and listen to some of the feedback and some of the, the things that we're saying, and they actually realize how much money is going to be spent on these guards, they might be second guessing themselves. And now that there's more talk about it, I don't know. I'd almost be wondering, if we were to do it again. I'm with who was it that just said that they were in favor of the referendum? Frank, was that you? I think it would be, I wish we could do it. I think it would be fantastic. I mean, I'd love to see like an overwhelming, yes, this is the percentage that support it, but we're just too close, the numbers are too close, and it's really not in favor one way or the other.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have anything new to bring forward?
Yes. Oops. Okay, as far as the referendum, I would ask please that you talk to Mr. Jerem and see if it's possible to get it as a referendum question on the ballot that's coming up for the budget hearing, the budget vote this spring. I got the impression that it was not one and done or two and done, never to be explored again. I'm talking to you. Yes, sir. I'm looking at you.
Oh, I apologize.
That's okay.
I thought you were bringing the comment to the board,
No, it was to you.
because I'm 0 for 2 right now.
It's
If I'm
okay.
going to personalize it, I'm 0 for 2.
It's okay. As far as the postcard that came out, over the last couple of months, I've gotten 3 postcards, a Democratic, a Republican, and one on the school security. To me, and I'm sure to a lot of other people, and I hate to say it, in my generation, they look at them, they look like ads, they go right in the trash. We need to also ask the people that are over 65 that don't do QR codes, that might not do computers, that aren't on New Hartford Chatter or any of the other chatter groups, exactly how they feel. And now the latest discussion on the chatter group is all about the assessments, and they're worrying how much their tax bill is going to go up. If we all of a sudden hit them with, we also want to add 3 guards to our budget this year, that's got to be in the capital, appropriate in our capital plan. I don't know what's going to happen to these people. Some people live paycheck to paycheck. They're barely making it. And I realize, and I want to protect all the children, don't get me wrong, but we have to really look at this and see what we're doing. And I mean, we got these 3 grants, and we should fix our infrastructure of our school. And I understand about the open doors, and it's not a good thing. And I mean, things have been upgraded in some of our schools, but there's further upgrades that we can do. That's all I have to say.
Okay, so anybody on the board is welcome to bring forward a motion tonight. I'd like to bring forward the discussion we had at the last school security subcommittee meeting. Listening to the public, listening to the information gathering we had, there were a lot of discussions about what the process would be for hiring this armed security guard, as well as the credentials of this individual who the board was looking to bring on, or has been in discussions to bring on. So at the last school security subcommittee, we discussed bringing forward a motion that we have our superintendent provide us at our next meeting with the credential requirements of this individual, as well as the process of hiring the security officer. The process being the interview committee and who would be on that committee. The individuals who have the credentials to interview this person, to understand who they are, where they came from, and what they'll do for the committee. We had a couple of ideas, but I won't bring those up today on who would be on that committee. I'll leave that to our superintendent. But I'd like the motion that for tonight, I'll motion that we ask our superintendent to evaluate and review the credential requirements, as well as the hiring process of this particular school security guard, and bring that to us at the next board meeting for discussion and possible action.
I'll second.
No, we can open it up for discussion with a second on the floor. Again, please we don't need to repeat what everybody said in the last discussion regarding this. So if you have anything new to offer, please bring that forward. You have
What
something?
about the idea of adding an evaluation criteria? Would that fit?
I'd be okay amending my motion to include an evaluation criteria of the fit within our school
The
system.
one Kristen was referring to.
Just say that again.
Adding an evaluation criteria? Or if that's the right wording. That work?
Who seconded?
I second.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll bring it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, Jeff. I think Jeff wrote it down.
I've got it written down, or of course we're recording too.
Thank you, Jeff. You want to go through the balance of your superintendent report?
Will do. Thank you so much. Moving on to number 2 here. We have our regional education resource center, Ed Advance, has attained a school-based mental health professional grant for the entire region. Since we've now aligned and they are our alliance, we are no longer affiliated with the previous CREC. We are being awarded a half-time school counselor at no cost to the district for the next 5 years. So that is tremendous information that I want to share with the public. A great amount of thanks to Ed Advance, to Dr. Jeff Kitching, and to Dr. Judy Palmer as well for making that happen and facilitating that, as well as to our pupil services director or student services director, Mike Lynch, who's been in consultation with them so that we could have this additional support to our school district. I'm very, very excited for that. Next, we have social emotional learning presentation. We're going to be scheduling for early 2024. So either January, February, maybe even a March Board of Education meeting. We are going to go over the what is and what is not the social emotional learning curriculum in our school district to clarify and provide that information publicly to all of our constituents, parents, family members, and to the board. It'll be a very informative session, so look forward to that on future agenda. Up next, I'll speak very briefly because it is going to come out as a report later on, but for the 24-25 budget, we are going to elicit perceptions and input from the community, from staff to even students in grades 3 through 6, and also to our community members relative to our budget. The Board of Education goes through a rigorous process every single year of determining the allocation of monies through the budget and where money should be spent. And we go through that process with Board of Finance. We go through that process insulary. What I would like to do from my professional experience is expand that to have more input from stakeholders across the board. So that was lacking in our budget process last year. That will be a significant improvement to this year. And the pieces that we're going to be soliciting, which Tom I know will report a little bit later on, are again for budget implications and decision making. Up next on the superintendent's report, we have our CABE recognition. We have a board member, Penny Miller, who has served on the Board of Education for New Hartford Public Schools for 10 years. So recently she was celebrated at the CABE CAPS convention on a Friday luncheon, and this was earlier in the month of November. She was recognized for her dedication, her commitment to education in our local community, and we are so happy and so blessed to have Penny Miller serving as our board secretary, as our 10-year, I mean, that's an incredible run. So we're thankful to you, Penny Miller. Congratulations. Small gift. Okay. All right. And they gave this to you. I don't know if you're gonna wear that. I don't know. That's up to you. It's a little gold embroidered ribbon. And they owe you a pin as well, is what I believe. They wouldn't give it to me because my name is not Penny Miller. So I asked, I'll bring it to her. No, we'll mail it to her.
It best be chocolate.
So congratulations, Penny. Thank you so much for your service.
You're welcome. 2 more years.
Other quick updates that I wanted to just communicate to the public are our pre-K cooking program that we have taking place in New Hartford Public Schools on Thursday afternoons. It's one of the most amazing moments to see the collaboration of staff members from student services and regular ed in the pre-K community of learners working together to listen to directions, follow directions, put together recipes for adorable and delicious treats. No one offered to share with me. I don't expect them to, but they are adorable, and it's just an amazing sight to see. So board members, please, if you ever want to come to a cooking class in preschool, please join us. Also, recently, 4th grade, I had a quick little picture, Paul, but I noticed that this turned off, of Representative Mark Anderson, 4th grade Antolini, on November the 28th, went up to visit the state capitol, and he was able to provide 2 tours to our 4th graders, which was amazing. And they talked and engaged about the chamber house rules and chamber rules, and also creation of laws in the state of Connecticut. So it was a very engaging proponent for our kids, and they were able to sit in the seats of the legislature. So it was a big deal for them. It was really nice. So thank you to our Representative Mark Anderson as well.
Can I ask a question?
You may.
On this grant that we got from Ed Advance, the halftime school counselor, are they just in a school?
Nope.
Are they moving through the school, different schools?
Wherever the need is. So every year that could change, right, over a 5-year period of time. So the needs could be increased at a particular area. So this will be available to all. And we'll structure that within the current mental health professionals and clinical staff that we have, school psychologists, social workers, and school counselors. So this will be in addition to our staff. So wherever the need is, this is where I trust our administrative staff to schedule them appropriately for the need.
So they'll be here like 3 hours a day?
No, they'll be here for, so if it's a halftime, they'll be here for 2.5 days of the week.
Oh, 2.5 days.
Yep.
Okay.
And schedule can be flexible. Again, where the need is, they're going to work with us to schedule that.
Okay. I was thinking they'll only be here a half a day, 5 days a week.
Understood.
Okay.
Understood.
Got it. Thanks.
You got it. Also wanted to just share with the public that Leslie from Hands of Grace, we were informed that they are completely overjoyed and incredibly humbled by the large amount of donations that we were able to collect from all 3 schools. They've been able to provide so much for our families over the past several years, and just so happy that we could give something back to them. So we had a food drive, and the donations are a huge help in their mission to provide our community for our community during this holiday season. So thank you so much to all community members and the efforts of all of our schools and our students and our families. Thank you for taking care of one another in the New Hartford Public School community. It's a beautiful thing to see. Those are all of my updates, sir.
Yes, Tom.
So do we also still have that support from the CJR?
We absolutely do.
Counseling?
Yep. CJR is even today, December 5th, we have a wait list already. That's how much they are taking advantage. The families, I say this without any shame or any pause, because the stigma of mental health is deteriorating, and I'm so happy. That makes my heart sing. Because when folks are struggling, they're not resisting. They're not thinking there's something wrong with me. They're seeking the help, and CJR has partnered with us to provide the counseling supports right here in school to eliminate the barrier of we're busy, we're a family, we've got X, Y, and Z going on. We can't make it to the therapy session or the counseling session in the evenings. We're offering it right here at school. It's amazing. So we do still have that partnership, and we'll continue with that.
Any additional questions on the superintendent's report? All right, moving on, routine business. Can we get a motion to approve the minutes of November 7th?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay. Motion passes. I don't know what you got there. You count them up? All right, good. Can we get a motion to approve the expenditure report? Second.
Second it.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right, item number H on the agenda, new business. My notes don't tell me who's running through policies.
Yep.
Oh,
Are you
Penny.
good? Are you good, Penny, with that and then the notes, or do you want me? I'll help. Go ahead.
I can do it because I'm taking it.
Very good.
These are first reads?
These are first reads. That's why they're under new business. Yes.
Yeah.
My apologies for not listing that as such.
Okay, the first one is policy, I guess that's what the P means.
Yeah.
5141.4, reporting of child abuse and neglect. Any changes that Kate has been recommending are in the red. So on the first page, it talks about the board shall annually distribute the mandated policy, reporter policy electronically to all school employees.
Penny, I have a question. CABE is reviewing all this again. That's what you said, correct?
Right. these
They're
all come
reviewing
from
this.
CABE.
They're making recommendations
Yep.
to update our policy manual with these different, okay.
Yes, but we can also make changes, like sometimes they put it that it's through grade 12, but we only go through grade 6.
This is also just codifying. This is our practice already. We review every single year. So this is just putting it into updated policy format.
And then on page E, it's just amending the legal references.
Yep.
Removing some at the top and adding one at the bottom. Other than that, I saw page. Any other changes to this policy? So I mean, you can read it again this coming month, and then we'll be voting on it at the second read next month.
Yep. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir,
We read through these. There's not very much latitude to make changes anyway, though, correct? There's not like,
Dependent on how we want to implement it and how we see best fit. So sharing these electronically, we could share them via a Google Drive folder, or we could share them via email. It's really up to us. That's our latitude when we put it into play at our schools. But mandated training and reporter training, that has to happen.
is that what you meant, Tom?
basically, but I mean, we're, like, to your point, we could change 12 to a 6.
Right.
That's not really much input from the board. That's really where it was going. There's not a whole lot of room
No.
for any of these things anywhere other than it's officially
Yeah.
codified in our policies.
Yeah, the ones that are existent are typically tweaks. So two of these, or 2 out of these 3 are tweaks. 1 is brand new that did not exist. And as I go through the 9,000 or greater amount of policies and I notice things are not there for the protections of our Board of Education, our students in our district, I'm recommending those through the policy committee.
All right, the next one is 1212 on school volunteers. When this committee, the policy committee met, we spent a lot of time on this.
Yep.
For those of you who have volunteered at school, in order to be a school volunteer, you have to fill out a form. Like I did at the beginning, I filled out a form, I was fingerprinted by the police. I put down that I was not a sex offender, don't have any criminal record, everything else. but I only had to do it once. Now the policy is every time you become a volunteer in the September, you have, or whenever during the school year, you have to fill out a new form every year. Not your fingerprints, but just the form itself, because something might have changed. So, anyways, on this,
Our prior form was one that was confusing at best. It had listed volunteer 1 and volunteer 2 on the same form, did not have clarity. We sought to have further clarification and limitations to those that are volunteering. It's a fine line, but our job is to make sure that our students are safe all times. So that's why we're requiring the annual sex offender registry check, the DCF background check, and any criminal histories to be conducted, especially if you're not supervised with children. You need to go through that full extensive background check, and you need to do it on an annual basis at a minimal. We want to make sure that we are leaving our students in good hands with those that if they're not supervised with a certified staff member or an employee of the New Hartford Public Schools.
so on page A, actually the second page, it talks about how the two forms, we also made up two forms, one for group 1 and one for group 2 volunteers. That's mentioned in number 2. On number 5, we removed part of the sentence that was about the photos and added to that. So now you can't take, like if you're a volunteer in a classroom, you're not to take pictures of the students doing anything or any of their work that's on the wall. You really shouldn't be taking photos of anything in a school classroom. Like during school, while you're there. I don't know about when we have conferences, are they allowed to take pictures then?
If it's their own student work, absolutely. Parent conferences?
Yeah,
If it's their own student work.
well, assuming we would hope they would only do their students, but. And then at the bottom of page A, it says like group 1, it takes up to 5 business days for processing. So like if you came in today to volunteer at any of our 3 schools at the sale that they had for the little children to buy Christmas gifts, you couldn't just walk in the door and say, hey, I'm here as a volunteer and not have filled out the form. It takes 5 days to process it, up to 5 days. Yes.
Who's processing it and what is the
superintendent's
process?
office.
The superintendent's office is processing a form
Yes,
that says someone wants to volunteer in our school system.
right.
Can I point clarification? So point 1 is that it would be processed at the school building.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Volunteer group 2 is processed at the superintendent's office with a fuller background check. So the first one, they can check the sex offender registry and get this information right to the individual with 5 days for processing. The other one is more in depth and comes to the superintendent's office. You'll see one has for school use only at the end, and then the other one is group 10. It says must complete background check from form in the superintendent's office. Criminal conviction information and such is all listed on those forms at the end.
So I bring that up because in light of school security and again, just again, in my professional life working at schools, I'm required to do a background check to be anywhere near a school. I wonder why this is CABE's policy.
It is CABE's original, but the volunteer sheet that you see before you are ours that we've created and distinguished between a level 1 and a level 2. So if you're coming in to read a book to a child, you're going to be supervised. The principal knows you're there. You're going to be supervised by the staff member. They're not going to walk out and leave. So that's the difference between that or level 2, which needs a deeper background check to make sure that you are of good standing to be with kids. One such might be on a field trip for a level 2 as an example versus a
Or White
level 1
Memorial.
or White Memorial in an overnight trip. Correct.
It looks like the chaperoning and overnight field trip is crossed out in this version of the policy. Was that intentional? Or is that?
Yeah, because it was ambiguous and it wasn't in the right category.
It doesn't.
So that's more for a
it's in
level.
Group 2 and it's crossed out.
Well, it should be for a level 2. So
But maybe it's included under extracurricular events. But you're right, it should be there.
Yeah, it would be a level 2, not a level 1. Yeah, it would have to be a level 2. I know that definitively. It would not be a level 1. Why it's crossed out? May have been a
Typo.
typo. I'm not really sure. I will, we'll bring it back to policy subcommittee and decide.
Yeah,
Okay.
is there a way to take this policy back there and further define group 1, right? Your example of a parent coming in to read to a student who's
Mhm.
there with a teacher
Mhm.
is one case, right? And again, group 1, I understand that. You're not going to put them through a background check to be able to do that. But this doesn't define that enough for me. It says assisting in classroom, cafeteria, or library. All right, when a staff member's present, but again, the staff member leaves the room, we're putting a lot of faith in that they're always with somebody.
Mhm.
So again, I think maybe duration of time that they're volunteering, or, if it's going to be once a week for a month period, whatever it might be, I think we've got to put some guardrails around group 1.
Yeah, on the Form 1, I remember us discussing that exactly, and we did leave some leeway for the principal's discretion of other things that they would be coming in for, if I'm not mistaken. Whether it's assisting in the main office, helping shelve books, things of that nature. So that would be that next level of checkpoint that the principal has to sign off on that. You're
We can discuss it
requesting
again.
putting more into the policy, like, because we won't have the catch-all of every type of instance. That's why that
No,
next
I think-
level of approval would come at a principal's discretion.
I guess I'll use the example of a one-time parent coming in to read a book, right? That to me falls into a group 1.
Yeah.
A parent that comes in and volunteers once a week
Mhm.
for a 3-month period
Mhm.
is with the students a lot more often and has a larger chance of potentially being unsupervised.
So
In that
depending on what they're
particular-
doing.
Right.
Yeah,
In
then the
that
principal would-
particular instance, in their number of times they're here in the school, I
Yeah.
would say that we want to relook at that to say maybe that needs to be a group 2.
Sure.
And we should do a background check on the individual who's spending more time in school with our students
Mhm.
that has the potential of being alone with students.
Understood. Yeah. Based on the nature of their visit or their volunteerism, the principals are going to dictate whether it's a level 1 or level 2 to process it further. But if we want to make that more explicit in our policy, we certainly can. It's
That's-
on the forms.
Yeah,
But
that's
it's
my
not-
opinion. Again, I'm one of.
Yeah.
So-
Yep.
I
That's why it comes before us
Solicit
for
other
first
input.
read.
Yep.
Yeah.
Might
That
solicit other
we
input.
want the input.
anyone else on that?
So do you just want to, we won't continue on this one, we'll just discuss it in the next policy meeting?
We could take it.
Okay, let's
yeah.
do that. All right, the last one is community relations visits to the school classroom observation, policy 1250.
So as you just mentioned, Tim, and for the remainder of the board, when you read through this policy, the spirit of, again, having a fine line of welcoming, being a welcoming place, but also having strict guardrails to what Mr. Kleps was just referring to, this exemplifies that exactly, because currently right now, there is no protocol or structure or policy to get this accomplished. If a member of a family member, for example, wants to visit a classroom, there's nothing that's prohibitive and there's no guidelines or guidance to make sure that that is done in good faith and is in compliance with our policy, because it doesn't exist. So this is a brand new policy to help protect students, to help protect and provide specific purpose and rationale for visits to classrooms without causing disruptions. Because currently I could say, well, I want to visit that Mrs. Priest's classroom every single week for the next month, and there's really no prohibitive measures. I have to have a purpose behind it. I have to go with a certified staff member. I have to understand that I am not going in to evaluate Mrs. Priest. That's not my job. And that's got to be very clearly stated in policy. That's what this does. This also puts guardrails up for any observation protocols that would be abused otherwise. A student is going through an evaluative process and an advocate or another independent evaluator wants to come in and observe students. There is nothing to prohibit or put a nice pathway before them and what they need to do. So there's purpose of the visit. There is a formal, scheduling of the time to visit. And then there is the post visit as well to make sure that, again, everything is being followed from soup to nuts, protection of students' rights, their confidentiality, also of staff members, not disrupting the classroom often and being burdensome, but having a balance too, to make sure that, yeah, we absolutely welcome input of an independent evaluator, but we want to do it the right way. That's what this policy is. Previously did not exist. Be more than happy to answer any other questions on that.
The only real change I see on this is on Form A. We added the words New Hartford Public Schools.
That was us adopting it to be
Right.
specific to our school district.
And on Form B, we removed program director and put in student services director.
Yep.
Because we don't have a program director. And that was it.
Jeff, is
Sir.
it your intention that the parent or visitor would read this before coming into a classroom?
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Principal would meet with the individual, share the policy protocol, what needs to be done, fill out that paperwork, make sure it's done appropriately, make sure they're licensed, they're authorized to be there, all of the above. Yep.
Is that all, Penny?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so the new policy, if you haven't on the board, if you haven't read this policy, this is the first read. We'll vote on it to make it policy next meeting. So if you haven't read through it, please do. And if you have any questions before that, I guess send them over to Jeff before the next policy subcommittee.
Please. Yep.
All right, item I, old business, Board of Ed meeting schedule for 24-25. Jeff, that wasn't in my packet.
Wasn't in mine either.
I got it.
I have it.
Okay.
My packet has it.
So, last meeting, right? Last meeting, we went through the
I'll
board
go through it.
calendar. There was some conflict.
Yep. Penny had taken a great deal of fine look over all of the dates so that they did not conflict with a superintendent who likes to go to the Board of Finance meetings and keep Board of Finance up to date. Point very well taken. So we made some adjustments to some dates on here. I could pass this around. I apologize that it was not in your calendar, but those dates that Penny had then suggested to avoid those conflicts are reflected here. So those are the only changes that were made. And I apologize, board members, that you didn't receive that.
I checked his calendar because he sent it to me. And there's only a couple meetings where there is a conflict with Board of Finance, but they're like the summer meetings, I believe.
Correct.
So, I mean, he doesn't,
Attend all
while
of
they
those.
love to have him there, he doesn't need to attend the June meetings, August, something like that.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Penny. Thank
And
you,
I
Jeff.
believe you took off the conflict with when you have to present to the public,
Correct.
the budget.
Yep.
Okay.
Any questions on the Board of Ed meeting schedule for 24-25?
Yeah. Could you share that with us digitally?
Yeah, it should have been shared electronically too, outside of your board packet, because those are all shared via PDF and then emailed over. I apologize again.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion. Oh, Tom did it? Okay, I'll second it.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes.
Jeff, can you send out those invites on the calendar once?
For all of these electronically?
Yeah,
Yes,
so it's just easier to just pop on the calendar.
absolutely. I'll have Janet take care of that.
Okay, moving on to item J, reports, Ed Advance Board. Deirdre?
All right, so Jeff did, you guys should have this packet, the advance, these are not actual finalized, minutes from the board. This is draft, and I think we'll vote on this the next meeting in January, so we'll have a third meeting now. I'm not gonna read through this entire thing, this was actually my first, board meeting since joining, representing New Hartford. Jeff had a great idea to have us have some representation for our district on the board. I think it's a fantastic idea, because they are just doing a lot of stuff, and I think it's for their presence. I would just bring your attention to the second page, the report update from Jeff Pitching. I mean, really, the three things that I thought that were most important were, obviously the end of report went out. He was talking about the early childhood and family programs departments. They had 2 trainees up in kindergarten. You guys are very, obviously aware of that. The impact it's gonna have on the district, so they talked about that a little bit. And there's gonna be workshops and things like that to get, big on it. They're also the Jonathan, who works there, they're working on going through some of the new state mandates, including the fact.
Any questions for Deirdre? Okay, thank you. Next report out is for curriculum subcommittee. Back to you.
So I actually.
Questions? Okay, thank you, Deirdre. And final report out is community outreach. Mr. Buzzy.
I don't know where the minutes for that one went.
I got you. It's okay.
That was a 10-minute.
Yep, we met briefly. So as I shared earlier in my superintendent's report, there was a piece that was lacking, and the community outreach, their mission and their work as a subcommittee is to reach out to the community, find out their perspectives, their thoughts, their ideas. So the survey was created. Great kudos to my leadership team too. I had over, 30 items on there, right? And they said, there's no way, Jeff, because no one's going to take time to fill out 30 questions worth of stuff. So we whittled it down to, again, attain the perceptions. I think I said perspectives earlier, perceptions of the community relative to our school district, our performance, how we are preparing our students, but also then to take a careful look at our budget and have them kind of go through a little bit of what you would prioritize in the budget process. So again, looking to engage the community in the process. So Tom and Penny had met with me to then approve that survey. That survey just went out today. It'll go out again on the 12th of December, and it'll go again as a reminder on the 21st of December to elicit as much feedback as we can. Then I'll work over the holiday break to disaggregate all the information and break it down to then present to the Board of Education during our budget workshops to help us understand some of our constituents' perceptions of the board's work and of our school district's performance.
What was that third date?
December 21st.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That is via QR code, paper format, any way you slice it and dice it. So we could involve everybody. I will have them at the senior center, post office, library. It's going to go anywhere people would like to fill it out. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Can we put it on Facebook?
Yes. Thank you so much. It's funny that you mentioned that. Thank you to Deirdre, who's been meeting with me and helping me get that off the ground. Soon to be launched. We're just finalizing some little minute details of our new Hartford Public Schools Facebook page. So that will be officially launched relatively soon. So keep your eye out on Facebook and don't be surprised if you get invited. And we'll be collaborating with the chatter groups throughout Bakerville, Antolin, or New Hartford chatter groups to, again, continue to disseminate information where people are at. So we want to communicate with folks. It's very important to do so. So yes, it will be posted there as well, Penny.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is executive session. I think we need a motion. Oh,
Can I, yep, just before we go, I know people are still listening online and we're about to end, but on behalf of the Board of Education, all of our teachers and staff, because this is our last meeting before the Merry Christmas holiday. So Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy holiday season to everybody and a happy 2024 as well.
Thank you.
All right, I make a motion, we go into executive session at 8:42.
There was a second. All those in favor? Unanimous.